Good morning, everybody. We're still waiting for a few more people to filter in, so we'll get started in a minute or so. Okay, I think we can go ahead and get started. Thank you, everybody, for joining us for the March 2025 Freight Movement Task Force meeting. Appreciate everybody's time. I know this is the anniversary of the Key Bridge collapse, so I think we're going to be probably a little shorter on attendance than we normally would be, but so for everybody that is here, I appreciate it. We originally had 4 speakers on the agenda, but due to some ceremonies that are taking place today, Carl Chamberlain from the Maryland Transportation Authority had to back out so he could attend some of the events. So we have 3 really good speakers still, though. So hope everybody enjoys their presentations. There's a few people on the line that I'm not sure who they are. So if we can go through the attendance real quick. This meeting is being recorded, just for the record. So if anybody has any objections to that, let me know. But right off the top, I have Dan Blevins. And Dan's going to be one of our speakers, so we'll give him a better introduction in a minute here. Blake, if everybody just wants to introduce themselves real quick.
Yeah, cool. No worries, Keith. Morning. Blake Fisher here with the BMC. I'm in emergency management section of the office. Morning, everyone.
Thanks, Blake. Brenda, don't have a last name.
Good morning. I'm Brenda Tharp. I am with Maryland Motor Truck Association because my boss is tied up at the bridge.
Thank you, Brenda. Let's see, Partha.
Yes, Partha Mazdiasi with Maryland Port Administration Office of Planning.
We have Anna.
Hi, I'm Anna Marshall with BMC.
My list of participants keeps moving on me. It's hard to keep track. Chad.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Chad Reese with WRA. We do some freight consulting work with Dan Blevins, Will Mapco, DelDOT, and MDOT previously as well.
Thank you. Brian.
Hi, Brian Ryder with BMC.
Thanks, Brian. And Brian will be another one of our speakers, so I'll give him a better introduction in a minute too. Cindy.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Cindy Birch. I'm a safety planner here at BMC.
Did I do Ed already?
I don't believe so. My name is Ed Mahalski. I'm with Ecologics Group.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Jacqueline.
Hi, Jacqueline Thorne, Maryland Department of Transportation, Office of Rail and Intermodal Freight. Hi,
Thank you. Janie.
Hi, good morning. Janie Nam. I support freight planning with the National Capital Region Transportation Planning Board in DC.
Thank you. Lakeisha.
Morning, I'm Lakeisha Markley with State Highway Administration, Office of Planning, Innovative Performance Planning Division.
Yep, and Lakeisha will be one of our other speakers, so we'll give her a better introduction in a minute as well. Nicole.
Hi, everybody. Nicole Katsakidis. I'm at USDOT at Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration.
Thank you. Let's see, I have somebody that says P check. I'm not sure who that is.
Good morning. My name is Paul Zeck, and I'm with the Texas A&M University Transportation Institute. And we're working with Lakeisha Markley and Toria Lassiter at SHA on some freight planning initiatives. And I'm just listening in today, so thank you for allowing me to join.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. Regina.
Good morning, Regina Aris, Baltimore Metropolitan Council.
And last but not least, Yessa.
Good morning. My name is Isa Resurrection.
Sorry about
I'm
that.
from WSSC, Strategic Sourcing Manager.
All right, did I miss anybody? Perfect. So at this time, we don't really have a formal process, but we do like to get approval of the minutes from the previous meeting. Our last meeting was actually in October of 2024. We did skip the January meeting of this year, or the December meeting, I should say, of last year. So our last meeting was October 24th. So if I can just get it, I guess a quick yes or no if you approve of the minutes that I sent out to everybody. Well, there's not really, I'm not going to go through every name. So if anybody has any disagreement with the minutes from last meeting, let me know. All right, so hearing none, I'll just go ahead and get into the presentation. Our first presentation is from Dan Blevins from Wilmapco. He's a principal planner, and he's going to be giving us a presentation on the Newcastle, Delaware first and final mile study. So Dan, take over if you want.
Okay. Do you guys see my screen okay?
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. All right. Yeah, good morning. I'm here to give an update on our kind of a second iteration of our first and final mile of freight network update for Newcastle County. I would say it's pretty much our second iteration. Quick background on it. The first version we did was back in 2021. We had actually started talking about this pre-COVID on doing this. We were calling them as kind of like forgotten miles back in the day. So it's had a couple different different names and whatnot. But our effort in 2021 was a statewide look on just trying to identify, first final mile networks. There was a nice little thing for the land use side about looking at planning for freight related development. That's where kind of the genesis a lot of this was starting to appear. Why an update so quickly? Well, COVID happened. So anything you were doing pre-COVID, especially in the freight world, just seemed to be grossly out of date pretty fast. There were changes in the in e-commerce and other redevelopments happening, within Newcastle County and the state, and I'm sure in Baltimore too. But more importantly, the first version I would say is like we kind of got it off the launch pad of being able to do this type of analysis to come up with this network. We wanted to expand it a little bit into looking at solutions for locations, better insights for how we prioritize projects. Bring the kind of the second and third iterations of this to the to this practice. Starting with the definition, I'm sure we could have a philosophical debate on this about our first or final mile. I know, downtown Baltimore, New York City, Philly, you may be looking at, fighting for parking spaces outside of a building was you would call, final mile. But more or less, this version here, we have a cool little tree diagram here that kind of gets to what our piece of the puzzle is for this effort, that links those truck generating facilities. They're typically your lower classifications and whatnot. How do they link back to all of those mandated freight connection, freight routes that we're supposed to show by law, federal highway and whatnot? How do those tie in? So, for Northern Newcastle County, we spent a lot of time on these for sure. All the things we need to do, but most of us, in the planning world know that. This is where trucks are supposed to be. However, they start getting into those lower classifications, and that's where the conflicts begin to happen. So, these, your smaller routes are where, a lot of our headaches begin, when it starts talking about, different levels of, conflicts with other users of the system. So a couple local examples is kind of, I call them our poster children for this. They're in an area like this, right off I-95, 896. Some of them will kind of scoot through a residential area and then end up on, a large strip of a commercial industrial business center. Some of these are starting to go into, the land use is a certain way, and then, maybe a warehouse opens, it changes that dynamics a little bit. But, overall, the DNA of these, are things that are listed there, Bapana Collector Road, they lack attention from decision makers because they're maybe off of the federal highway network if they're a local road. Not necessarily sure about their whole importance to the the economy and the region as a whole about how these function. They can be just not 2-inch pavement. They're not really well marked, and there's a lot of things that can happen. But the bottom line is that this is where we start seeing those local area conflicts between residential and land uses and the like. Now, the true poster child, we have this area in Newport where there's two companies, a refrigeration company and something called Twinco. These are the two signs at the bottom that they posted for their truck drivers to say, hey guys, take these roads. These are the ones that we want to see you on. Here's those roads. So this is the, where the truck traffic should go. So we kind of use these two examples here as our poster children are saying, what is this all about? So moving in, so those are, kind of a bit of the background here. The key project steps are these, is that as we look at these locations, some of them have a little bit of a different look and feel to them. So it's a matter of, institutional, who ownership of those. Obviously we bring up the idea of land use, how land uses, change, or the current land uses, will, change the dynamics of, trucks and their mobility and how they move through. Safety, are there in areas where we're seeing a lot of, truck area crashes, roadway condition, probably one of the biggest pieces on here, about the wear and tear that new changes to the land use part, can certainly make impact to the roadway conditions. How can, different things about policies, different partnerships, projects, or even programs, can begin to help influence those. But more importantly, came up with a kind of a 3-tiered framework. It's easy to say, well, let's just ban trucks. However, if they're trying to get to a certain industry, business, like my example back there, we have to find a way to either protect those industries from these conflicts, manage that traffic flow if there's going to be a mixing of the uses of it, or more importantly, accommodate. There are ways we can reroute things around, or provide a better out for these to prevent some of these major issues here. So all these three things here, as we identify the network, when we begin that second part of the report, our analysis, these are the things that we put a lot of time and energy into. So being this is a 2025 product, we do have some more tools. As I mentioned, we're looking at, we're doing a quick redo of this. Looking at the network approach, we have an existing layer that we started with from 2021, but there's new tools at our disposal to help us kind of fine tune that a little bit about backing out and just saying, okay, where are our freight intensive sectors? So looking at back from here's where, you know, the end game is with all the, you know, the businesses who are freight intensive, and how does that work itself back to the primary freight networks that we have? And then for the next steps, we'll be looking at, you know, improvements to these locations, and you'll see a few that we've got a few wins in the area that we're able to show. So with this effort here is kind of about 6 different ways we're looking at this here. Looking at the sites, you know, where are these generators coming from? You know, where is the source of these here? Employees by type, you know, looking at that, obviously a lot of GIS work. Directionality, bringing in some of the subscription-based services that we have, like, you know, like Streetlight, to look at that true OD. How are they flowing in and out and around some of these areas that may be a little bit fuzzy? You know, some of the routing starts to take place, and also just, yeah, we have a very good local stakeholders. So giving a little bit more review to kind of work all through all of these 6 steps here. Key example is one here. This is up off 202 by the PA line. 202 is a critical urban, you know, freight corridor. Off to the left there where you see High Point Farms, that's a very busy dairy farm. So there's a lot of truck traffic here and there. So the idea is that we know this little section here of Beaver Valley, we'll see you know, it's going to be carrying a certain amount of trucks to and from that location. What we're able to do is say, okay, yes, that is functioning as that real final mile facility. We can certainly stop it afterwards, as you see the words exclude there. But, you know, up to that point, it has some, you know, real functionality as, you know, carrying some heavy truck traffic. So this kind of just how we work through each one of these to get to the point that where you are now. You know, as I mentioned, we use, you know, sourcing can be, and Chad and I can certainly attest to, there's not one single best source out there to say, here's the data source that can show us all the number of employees and where the freight intensive sector industries are. For this one, we did use Data Axle. I'm just trying to get the point-based information of where we're seeing certain types of industries, and knowing that they're, you know, the trip generation rates, or even what they're moving back and forth in terms of weight, can be you know, can vary. So you know, the idea is looking at, here's our utilities and construction locations of, you know, facilities within the county, manufacturing, you know, sites here and there. The one we all hear about now, warehousing, certainly, as you know, that's the, you know, because of the e-commerce and what we're seeing, we got about 13.5 million, not including some of the other larger facilities, you know, that had just been recently built. But, you know, I know it doesn't pale in the Baltimore area. There's, you know, with what's being, you know, built and on its way down there. But, you know, it is something that's encroaching on Newcastle County. So, you know, having those future locations, you know, kind of got us thinking on our, you know, how we categorize these first final mile facilities, you know, going ahead. Retail and food services, you know, to a lesser extent, but yes, they still are, you know, heavy generators there. One thing we did tap into this time is, and we became really, really helpful when you see things from the air and just say, well, you know, here's the facility, the generating trucks, which way would they really go? So we tapped into our Streetlight subscription to, you know, kind of be that better set of ground truthing of just looking at simply where we're seeing truck activity from that broader spectrum. But also, if you have an industrial park, or as trucks are heading to the Port of Wilmington off of 295, where are they routing to? What choices are they making to figure out, you know, if they're leaving this, you know, said location, truly what direction are they heading, to kind of get us an idea of, you know, on locations like the one here in the middle, cutting through the city of Newcastle, you know, getting a flavor for what we're seeing, you know, generated at those locations there. So, and obviously ground truthing, just listening to an awful lot of our, you know, we had an opportunity through a web map to allow people to say, hey, here's our draft network, adding some comments and whatnot to that, you know, to build a better mousetrap out of this. You know, how we're going to be displaying this is, you know, certainly it's going to be, you know, a network that we were identifying and developing, and, you know, something we added to this version from 2025 is breaking that down into a little bit of a tiered approach. a freight route. Some of these can be 1 or 2 miles, not necessarily, very, very long, but, they're a collector road that leads to and from, a major collector or a, arterial. They're a little bit longer, but we also have these really, really, really small ones that we know that lead into, say, either the shopping center or something that are going to have, truck activity on them. They're not very long, so we just kind of came up with the stub network routes. And then more importantly, as, some of the planning work we do, we've actually identified some that would be future. They're not built yet, but they've either come out of plans or studies or, other ideas to say, when it's built, this will definitely be a, first final mile, facility. So to add them on here as a, as a future, piece of the network. On the back end of this here, when we identify these, one thing we are doing is going through an effort of, trying to add some of that attribute information to each of those about, kind of what makes them tick. Are they going through, there's a land use side, are they going through what types of residential areas and, development zones, the pavement condition, of all these segments that we have, it's good, fair, or poor, things of that nature that we're able to, put into attributes about each one of these locations. Are they in a congested location that we have? Are they, is there low clearance issues, other truck activity? So kind of put a little bit behind, the GIS network that we generate is available on a web map to be able to help with certain land use plans and things like that that'll be available for, planners to use that, we've identified these as, a final mile network. Getting back to that, some of the land use agencies using some type of checklist about, if it's a freight intensive sector, some of these things about, drainage, pavement conditions, turning radii can be pieces of the, the improvements that they need to take into account for. So actually kind of getting to that, I mentioned one thing we didn't get into in the last report is something we want to really dive into this time, is showing improvement opportunities. As we did some of our site visits and whatnot, you see these industrial parks that are heavy truck generators. It could be as simple as this. There's a stretch here just outside of the city of Wilmington going into an industrial park. Little map on the right or upper left shows you. The bigger image is showing you the route that leads in and out of it. There is a very small housing complex just there to your left, but that's the route in and out, not a single pavement marking, things of that nature. So those are the ones we see that could be relatively easy wins to channelize things here a little bit more and to to add to that mixing of the fixing what we have here between the commercial and the residential uses. Others get a more elaborate. The poster child that I mentioned here, that's actually moving ahead as an actual project to extend Sears Boulevard to actually create a road siding that leads into that one property that was using those 2 side streets into the neighborhood. So, by, an actual making an extension of this in here, we can certainly eliminate and be much more forceful of trucks using those entrances, through that residential neighborhood. So you're giving them the opportunity to have easier flow through an industrial park as opposed to the residential neighborhood. Other things that we've been able to get a win on is areas that lead into some of these first final mile are looking at protected intersections, but actually adding truck aprons. So that there's, we're able to accommodate for the, this is getting back to the protect, manage, accommodate mentality that we're able to, still provide, the uses for, all modes of travel in the intersection, but also accommodate for, the knowledge that you're going to see certain truck movements in and out of those locations. And future, again, here's one that looking at, there's Route 9 throughout Wilmington is, historically been an area under scrutiny for the amount of trucks that go through pretty much a largely residential area from the port activity. One of our port alternatives study showed, well, a connection here, you could really make a lot of the truck flow from the traffic get to, down toward Cherry Lane and thus to 295, skipping an awful lot of the, the residential areas along Route 9. So, let me bring this back up here. Yeah, so that's kind of where we are right now. As I mentioned, we're looking to wrap this up in in June, going through most of the other stuff. And our network has pretty much been finalized. We're doing some of that background information right now with the attribute fields, and then with some of those and some of our site visits, start to come up with a bit of some recommendations, both big and small, for some of those locations that we're able to ask DelDOT for doing some of the small and or larger improvements.
Well, thank you, Dan. I think we have some time for some questions. If anybody has any questions for Dan.
Nicole?
Hey, Dan, this is fantastic. Great work, Chad and Dan, everybody. I wanted to ask you about Data Axle. I hadn't heard of that one before. Is that a subscription that you guys have? Or how are you accessing it, or did you buy it for this? And tell me more about it. It's really, because we're trying to we need that kind of information too for some things we're doing.
It just changed names. I'm drawing a blank on the company name that it was. It was something used and then went back. It became Data Axle. It's a point-based data source that gives you a fair amount of info. It gets down to some of the smaller NAICS codes. It does have number of employees and things of that nature. As I can attest, and certainly Chad, not all. There's no perfect data source. I mean, you can use the LEHD data, you can use Data Axle, you can use a few others, that are out there. There's always something wrong with them. This one here, we found like you have to be careful at post offices, because a PO box is being used for a company, that's their industry. We found a landscaping company with like 400 employees at a post office in Hockessin, Delaware. So you have to have some caution with that about using those. But, when you look at multiple different sources, you can start to lean through. We found it pretty good. But yeah, between that, you bounce off between that and the LEHD, it can be quite helpful. But we like the point location of these because it says, okay, here's where all these are, and then start working your way back from, regardless of what that road is, classification, whatever it is. This is a truck generating in business, and it's all the way out here in the hinterland, so they got to be coming to and from somewhere. But yeah, it's for purchase. DelDOT and we purchase it because we use it for the TAZ forecasting, for the travel demand model, and we'll use that as getting the mixture of the NAICS code blends, for jobs by type, because that changes the trip generation rate. So we were buying it already for that purpose, and I said, well, I'll just try to use this for this purpose here.
Okay, great. Yeah.
Real quick, Nicole, Data Axle used to be known as Info Group.
That
Yes.
Yeah, that's right.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I knew it had another name.
Well, thanks, Dan. Any other questions for Dan? Okay, well, thanks again. Appreciate it.
Sure.
So our next item on the agenda is, well, it was going to be an update on the Key Bridge replacement, but our speaker had to bail out for some of the events that are taking place today. So we still had two other speakers. So our next presentation, well, we're going to go out of order apparently. So Brian Ryder from BMC here, he's transportation planner, and he's going to talk to us about the BMC freight dashboard. So thanks, Brian. Take it away.
Oh, if I'm not next, I can wait.
You're up there now. Do you mind, Lakeisha?
Not at all. Go ahead.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry about that. I just wanted to make sure I could share. Can everyone see my screen?
We can. Can you? It's not
Okay,
in
let me
presentation mode.
Slideshow here. No. Okay. Okay, well, I might need some time.
Bottom right corner, Brian, get by the minus sign. There you go.
Yeah, there it is. There we go.
Yep.
Okay,
there you
so
go.
I'm going to go over BMC's freight dashboard that we created last year. It uses our freight modeling system, a component of our travel demand model. So our freight modeling system replaced our 2001 truck model, and it has a multimodal freight system. It was part of a Sharp 2 C20 grant, and we used existing data sources and created a long distance freight model and a commercial vehicle model, which was a new component that RSG provided us. We've had it since 2008, and we in the last couple years integrated it into our travel demand model Insight. So while that project was great, we couldn't really share things about it very well. So we created a freight dashboard with Cambridge Systematics, and it was developed in Tableau. So back to the model itself, here's some of the sources we used. It was based on an Ohio establishment survey from 2003. So kind of goes way back there. But and then we have logistic nodes and from BTS and LEHD data for employment. Also, it uses the FAF4. We're working on it, updating it to FAF5. And we use traffic counts from State Highway and ATRI data, and also port data from the Army Corps of Engineers, and some more air freight data from BTS. The project could not acquire rail data, which is very difficult. So here's what the consultant for the freight network just want to talk about. This is where all the data is coming from, so it's important to know where it's coming from. They created a network for us, actually what is really a global network that brings freight to the Baltimore region from air, water, and rail. So this is a little bit how it looks, and everything's TAZ based. So all the goods go from TAZ to TAZ. And so now here's our freight dashboard that we have. I'll give you the website at the end. I'm not going to do a live demonstration because I found Tableau is great, but Tableau needs to think a little bit. So it kind of moves a little slow. Like all dashboards, it's kind of like you got to play around with it, but I'm going to point out a few things. You know, the geometry that we have county, TAZ, and RPD. You know, I think most are familiar with their TAZs. RPDs are like a large collection of TAZs. So we can tease out time of day information for freight, type of activity, whether it was by the freight vehicle, like whether it's a break, a meal, delivery, other, pickup, return, transfer, or vehicle service. And we have origin county, destination county. We have origin RPD, destination RPD. And we have trip distance broken down by some categories, and trip duration broken by some time categories. And we also have vehicle type, whether it's heavy, light, or medium. So this is the freight flows. This is the freight trends. This is just some more charts, based on the same data there. Also, all of these can just be set to, certain years. We have 2019, 2025, 2035, and 2045 currently loaded onto this. And one thing I like doing is just looking at a specific TAZ. The TAZ I'm in right now is TAZ 311, Locust Point. And you can just click on it and see how many origin trips, freight trips, daily trips, 79, like now and then in the future. It's 98 and 2045. So it's interesting comparisons. It kind of drills down to where you need to look for. And in the future, we'd like to, figure out, hey, it'd be great to do some specific traffic counts for TAZs, especially like a peninsula like this, to see if there are indeed that many trips coming in and out. And also, this isn't part of the dashboard, but this is something we can do, just mapping the volumes. This is heavy truck volumes for 2012 and 2040. These maps are a little outdated, but this, give you an idea of what we can map from our travel demand model, which is integrated with our freight modeling system. And then this is the commercial vehicle volume, which found some kind of different patterns in the heavy trucks. So I think we all found it very interesting. And then we have all this data by TAZ too. So again, where you can drill down to a specific area. And yeah, here's the TAZ data. This is freight truck trips, which will show you a familiar pattern for the Baltimore area, the port and warehouse facilities along highways, basically. And large employers too, because like Aberdeen Proving Ground and Fort Meade use a lot of stuff. So. Okay. And so here's a link to our, I can put this in the chat. Give me a minute here. But here's the link to our freight dashboard, and I'll hand it over to Keith.
Well, thanks, Brian. Anybody have any questions for Brian? Oh, Brian, are you going to get off easy? No questions? Well,
I have a comment. I'll just say this is super cool, and I teach part-time at CCBC in the freight program. And I found this the other day. I was looking for different dashboards and things and I found it, and I was able to show my students. So we were we were geeking out with it. So it's pretty cool. Good job.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Yeah, that was one thing I was wondering how much use it's getting, and now we know. Nicole's at least using it. All right. Well, thanks, Brian. If there's no other questions, I guess we can move on. Lakeisha, do you want to pull up your presentation? Maybe. Do we still have Lakeisha? There we go. So yeah, our next speaker is Lakeisha Markley from State Highway Administration. She's the Assistant Division Chief for innovative performance planning in the Innovative Performance Planning Division. And my former coworker, I used to work with Lakeisha many moons ago in a previous life at SHA. So nice to have you back. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you, Lakeisha, if you can put that in presentation mode.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Keith. I hope everyone can hear me. All right. Can you all see the screen though?
We can.
Okay.
There you go. Perfect.
We'll see. Okay. All right. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Just wanted to give a quick overview of what we've been doing at State Highway. We were a little bit on hold for a minute, working on some items internally, which I'll tell you more about. But we were working on getting our contracts back together. So at some point you'll hear us hear me talking about TTI and their engagement, like how they are helping us. And I believe Paul is on the line, and Nicole, who used to work with us on some of these items. Just wanted to say thank you to everyone that helps to participate, helps to, make all of these things come to fruition. So at this point, some of our State Highway activities that I wanted to highlight were some of the planning work that's underway. We're building from our 2019 freight network truck parking survey, which is the last comprehensive survey of the system that provides a snapshot look, as well as our 2020 Maryland truck parking study, which provided a more comprehensive study that provided real-time overlays and recommendations of where the trucks were parking. And then our 2022 Maryland State Freight Plan, which provided an overview of what we've done to date and how we plan to move forward with the freight program statewide. And so at this point, we're working with JMT and a couple of other companies to work on the 2024-2025 truck parking survey. We're anticipating completion in the spring. Right now, with some of the snow and some of the federal funding issues, we've had some stop and go issues, and so the companies are wrapping up the counts. I believe that 95 is the count that's underway this week, and supposed to be the last count that we have. And so we're hoping to see the report by at least late spring, early summer to the latest. And we'll definitely share with everyone the results from that report. The second one was the Maryland Truckers map updates. We're working with, the last time this was updated was around 2017, 2018. Some things have changed, obviously. We have met with SHA internal offices, MDTA, the port, and we met late November 2024 to get an idea of how much of an effort it would take to update the map. sent out an email to MAA, MTA, and then our Maryland Highways Safety Office to see if they had any additional comments. And so while the other modals were providing the updates for their maps, we just wanted to make sure that everyone gave their feedback on anything that needed to be updated. So to date, we have our GIS lead has updated. She's done the preliminary updates based on the comments that we've received, and we're still working with some of the other modals just to address some of the follow-ups that were discussed during our coordination meetings. So we're aiming to complete this by late spring, early summer, and it's looking like it will be a digital map. And then for our planning tools, we'd like to share, let's see, we have our Maryland, this is roadway planning tool. Sorry. Let me see if I can pull up. Can everyone see it?
Yes.
Okay. So we have our Maryland Roadway Performance Tool that Nicole Katsikides, when she was at TTI, and her team helped to developed and for Maryland. And what it does is it overlays freight data. It includes speed data, top truck bottlenecks, top truck travel time index, congestion costs, hours of delay. It does a little bit more than that, but just wanted to kind of show you the tool. We'd like to add additional features. So we've been talking about potentially tying in some of the information that motor carrier provides on their oversized, overweight vehicles. We haven't delved into that yet. It's just a conversation it's a thought. We've brought it up to motor carrier, but we haven't started having meetings with them yet about it. But as I'm learning some of these different tools, we want to also offer that to our NPOs and local jurisdictions to utilize, to work on it, to see if there's any case studies that they want to develop so that we can kind of get some feedback and see if there's anything that we'd like to add or update. But the goal is to share the planning data that we have. It's really good data. And then we have a truck visualization tool as well that Nicole's team at TTI also assisted us, created. And so this tool, it overlays truck parking data that is in parking durations. It's about 1 hour. You can look at the 1 hour or less, 1 to 3 hours, 3 to 7 hours, and 7 to 11 hours, as you can see right here. You can also break the information down by month, by day of the week, and by vehicle weight class. And there's also all of this great data down here, which shows the pie chart of the breakdowns of the summaries of the time frame, the parking durations, but then it also has it in bar chart format. And then all of these additional breakdowns and charts that are looking at that you can analyze the data. by weight class again, and then by the month and time frames. And again, this is, and then statewide, you can take a look at the data statewide, the parking events by day. So this is something that we'd like to share with, give a tutorial and then share with the local jurisdictions and as well as the MPOs, so we can get some additional feedback. So we could see there's any other cases that we can use it for. And again, if there's any ways that we can update and improve the information. All right, which okay. All right, but the truck parking tool, that information, it also allows you to zoom in at the truck net to look at the truck network by satellite or by road network or both. And then you can also overlay the land use data, which is based on the last the 2010 data, which is the previous is it census data. So we do have that information. Also, in working with TTI, we are working to update. We've just gotten approval, or their team has just gotten approval to update the data. So we'll be adding 2023 and 2024, as well as 2022, because I think at this point it only shows up to 2021. So once we get that updated, which that looks like it's, you know, spring, summer, we'll be able to share that information with the MPOs. And then, you know, at that point, let everyone take a look at it, you know, see if they can, if there's anything that, as case studies, again, that we'd like to take a look at. All right, so the next thing that we're working on is our emergency truck parking map. And this is something that had, well, our map and our app. This is something that has been in existence for a while. The app intends to direct our truck parking allowances during inclement weather, which is defined as 6-inch snow events, to locations where they can pull over. Now that we have TTI back on board, we're looking at the locations in a feasibility assessment. And that began last spring after the tragic FSK bridge collapse, which happened a year ago today. And initially our goal was to identify short-term parking solutions near the bridge and Port of Baltimore. And then as we started looking at the data statewide, we realized that freight movements were shifting throughout the state. And so we came back, and it came back to an origin and destination question. And we wanted to know, like, where were the vehicles before, where were they now, and where are they going? And then we still had gaps in our assessment data. So we've been reaching out to our district offices to gauge the existing locations and to see if they're really feasible, and then documenting their amenities and attributes. And so again, the goal for this exercise is to ensure that we're defining emergency fully. Like, should we have any other scenarios? Should they be included? And then what do other states consider? Like, I guess pretty much looking at, you know, if we're missing anything. And then also ensuring that we're identifying reasonable locations that can accommodate the trucks well. Are we missing any additional locations? And should we add any other locations? This effort is likely to continue into the summer. And we're also updating, right now, we're also updating our internal work plan for the freight program and truck parking efforts. So I'm sure that this information will tie into our future efforts. So additional current MDOT and SHA truck parking activities are we're looking at planning, we're looking at our truck parking layouts, and this is kind of led, it's in our regional planning office. They're working with a consultant who is able to take a look at our locations, or a location, and maximize the amount of trucks that can fit on the lot. And so it's a preliminary like feasibility assessment. So we've been able to do that at a few lots. And at this point, we're looking at the I-70 truck rest area. We've met with our district and looking at expanding the truck parking at that location. We're reviewing the expansion. We've reviewed the expansion in the fall, and then we've discussed also potentially including EV charging stations as a part of the NEVI, or National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure system. Not sure that we have too many of our actual facilities that have EV charging stations, so this may be one of our first, at least along I-70. I know that it'll be one of our first if we're able to move forward with that. And so that's underway. We also met in the fall with our facilities maintenance team to discuss the I-95 northbound Laurel location, which we've looked at a couple of times in the past, but they're doing some updates to that facility, and they thought that it would, they realized that we have truck parking needs. And so this was part of the discussion of, will we be able to expand? So we're still taking a look at that location and seeing if we can actually get something done there this go around. For design and construction for truck parking expansion, we have our I-70 Welcome Center construction that's underway right now. It's anticipated to be complete by the end of 2025. It's adding 15 spaces eastbound and 10 spaces westbound. We're really happy that that's able to move forward. And then back to our electrical vehicle, I guess, infrastructure. For the NEVI program, we have round two. The round two requests for proposals were announced at the end of last year, and the RFP for those projects is supposed to close June 30th, 2025. In addition to the I-81 MDOT, I-81, there was MDOT submitted a charging, fueling, and infrastructure grant for EV charging stations. It was anticipated to open for August 2026. And then we had I-95 MDOT was receiving an US EPA Clean Corridor Coalition grant for medium heavy duty truck charging infrastructure. At this point, from my understanding, a lot of those projects the electrical vehicle projects are on hold due to the federal hold on the projects. And if I get an update, then I'll let this team know at the next meeting. But at this point, I believe those projects are on hold. So the last item I wanted to bring up was the critical urban and rural freight corridors. And I want to thank everyone who worked with our team that was led by young men, Troy, who is moved on to another office at this juncture, as well as Nicole Casakides and her team at TTI when she was there. They pretty much did they laid all of the groundwork and did all the analysis and GIS overlays and technical work to come up with the list of designations that we are at this point ready to move forward and send over to Federal Highway. We had a meeting with them last week, a quarterly meeting with them and MDOT. And right now our mapping team was just working on updating the list and finalizing our mapping internally. I was grandfathered this project, so I had to do a little bit of reverse engineering just to ensure we were addressing all of the legislative requirements. And I ended up talking to Alfredo at TTI, who sent this over, and it made me feel very comfortable that we were good. I just hadn't seen this. So at this point, we're ready to send our routes up through an internal review, and that process should occur in April. Let me see. We have about 89 urban routes and 149 rural proposed miles for the both of those. And that's it. If anyone have any questions, please let me know.
Great, thank you, Lakeisha. I do actually have a question for you myself.
Okay.
So
Hope I
for
can
the-
answer it.
I don't know. So for the emergency truck parking app or map or whatever, when that goes into effect for, say, a snow event, does that go into effect statewide? Because like maybe a snow event in Western Maryland is not necessarily a snow event on the Eastern Shore, so it wouldn't necessarily be needed, or is it just because it's a state app or it's an app, everything goes into effect for the entire state? Is that how that works? There's no way to like differentiate, like only this is only in effect for Western Maryland or whatever. Is that correct?
I think that once it's an emergency, like if it's a state of emergency, then the app goes into effect. From what I understand, there might be someone who understands differently online. If you do, please speak up.
Sorry, I didn't mean to ask an impossible question.
I know, and I think that's a great question, actually. I'll see if I get a different answer. I'll ask around to see if I get a different answer, but I believe that like once it's a state of emergency, like all of it comes into effect.
That would be my guess as well, but like I said, it doesn't necessarily make sense if there's a snow event out in Western Maryland that the emergency parking is available in the Eastern Shore where it's not snowing at all.
Yeah. And then even thinking about that, like it's interesting in going through this feasibility assessment, because in talking to, our teams, a lot of the locations have kind of been deemed that they needed to be removed. So we'll need to actually go back and forth, with our teams to find out like, all right, why are we removing these? They gave some feedback, but we want to still make sure that we have good coverage within those states. And so like if you're, removing some of those